All right, welcome back to part two of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. X and KB coming at you as we do every single week. Thank you if you're watching us on YouTube or if you're listening to us on your podcast platforms, however you listen to your podcast. We appreciate that very much. Well, the Western Conference Finals is headed into game 3 here on Friday night, tied 1-1. And for a lot of people, this feels like the actual NBA Finals series. But it's the game 1 of the series that really had everybody talking. And that is because that felt like a statement game by Victor Wembanyama. It felt like the dawn of a new day in the NBA, to say the least. After that game, I saw a lot of folks saying it's his league now, it's Wemby's league. I even texted you and I said, it's Wemby's league now. Everybody else is just living in it. Now, I know that you've got to win the title first, but what it was more than anything was a declarative statement of, as long as I stay healthy, this is what the future of the league looks like. And honestly, it's drawing people in. Monday's game 1 was the most watched Western Conference Finals game in history, according to all the reports that are coming out. And that is the Wemby effect. This guy is so much needed. He's what's needed for the league. And for, I'm going to say, at least the better part of a decade now, KB, it's always been a question on if an international player ends up becoming the face of the league, how well is that going to connect with the domestic crowd? I think the domestic crowd just wants to see guys that play hard, want to compete, and don't care about going out there on the court, being on all the friendly stuff, don't care about doing all the flopping. We just want good basketball again. Not that we haven't been getting good basketball, but when you look at what the Cleveland Cavaliers did the very next night, especially James Harden in particular, you have to have an appreciation for somebody like Wemby if you really have an appreciation for the game, if we're being honest. Because the Cavs had a 22-point lead, and they just went up and they threw up all over themselves to close out the game. Wemby's statement in game 1 in particular was, we are here. We're not just the future. We are right now. And we're coming for everything. We are ready. I know at times we've questioned throughout the season if San Antonio's ready. The only question marks I have is health. Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox. Because we talked a little about J-Dub and his injury in the first half of the show. I got my concerns about Dylan Harper and De'Aaron Fox not being there. Because as spectacular as Stephon Castle is, and he is spectacular, that dunk he did on Isaiah Hartenstein, it's been a long time since I've seen a dunk like that.
Oh, yeah.
But what he is not is a point guard. He's had 20 turnovers in the first 2 games. That's not winning basketball. So now the series shifts to San Antonio, and they play well in that building. We haven't exactly received the update on Dylan Harper just yet. I'm hopeful that it's nothing serious and he's able to get out there, and hopefully De'Aaron Fox can get out there too. But I would say that this series has not disappointed so far.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really ask for much more. Double overtime game in game 1, down to the wire in game 2. But you are right. When it comes to the San Antonio side, they need a true point guard, because as much as I love Stephon Castle and, I love his versatility on defense, he's not a point. And, the fact that you saw it at certain times when Casey Wallace was pressuring him, bring the ball up the court, he's not a true point guard. It's not where he's comfortable at. He's comfortable in a 2-3 type of spot. That's where he's comfortable at. So your lack of a true point guard is shown in the turnover numbers. If you're turning the ball over at a high clip like that, especially when you're talking about game 2, down the stretch, a true point guard, a true playmaker can kind of, settle everyone down. And, that is exactly what they're missing, because I think this series has been defined pretty much by health, because of the fact that J-Dub, AJ Mitchell, both are banged up. Even if you talk about from even if you're talking about from the side of San Antonio with De'Aaron Fox and Dylan Harper, it's like, who can stay healthy long enough to because this is a grueling series. Through the first 2 games, I've seen this as probably the most entertaining series that we probably had so far in the playoffs altogether, because of the fact that they're two pretty much evenly matched teams going at it. The 2 best teams in the West, and some look at it as the 2 best teams in the NBA. Like, Wemby is always going to be the X factor, no matter what. And it's crazy to say that somebody's best player is their X factor, but everything goes with him. Literally everything goes with him. He followed up a dominant performance in game 1 with a pretty good performance by a lot of guys' measures in game 2. Probably not to his same level, because he probably felt like that he should have done more. But the fact that he finished with, I think through 2 games this series, X, correct me if I'm wrong, he has 41 rebounds in 2 games. I mean, he's controlling the glass. I've seen him contest 2 shots at once. He contested a shot, and then even when they're actually, getting the offensive rebound, he has enough versatility to get back and contest another shot off of an offensive rebound. So Wemby still is the key. And you did say it best. This is his league. As long as he can stay healthy for years to come, this is going to be his league, because there's nothing you can do with him. I saw him shoot a running layup and in the same motion get an offensive board and dunk it in the same motion. There's nothing that you can do with him. Like, literally, he can do anything. The handle of a guard, the shot making ability of a guard, the defensive ability of a center, forward, whatever you want to call him. He literally is an alien. Like, we've never seen a player like this before. And as far as what you said about how he, influences the game domestically, as far as the product that people, like you said, I do think that people just want to see players play hard. I don't think it matters about international or domestically born player. I think it matters about the fact that these guys are getting paid millions of dollars. We shouldn't have to, we shouldn't have to do too much for them to play hard, which is something that he has, like that old school mentality. He hates losing. He wants to play hard. He wants to show that he is who he is on the biggest stages. And so far, he's shown us everything that we believed about him in the beginning anyways. He's shown that sometimes we don't need the experience of deep playoff runs. Sometimes we don't need it. It's just, I am that guy. And my team has come along for the ride as well, because you saw game 1. You got contributions from a plethora of guys, whether that was Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper. You even saw guys come off the bench and make contributions like Keldon Johnson. Devin Vassell was making shots. They need their full plethora of guys to kind of, sustain this thing, because they're going against an OKC team that has had that deep playoff run, that's had a couple of years now of deep playoff runs, and they need everybody. So, yeah, I think this is going to be one of those things where people are going to look at this series as, yeah, whoever can stay the healthiest might win this series, because we've seen Shea have a bad game 1, bounce back in game 2. Wemby pretty much was consistent, but like I said, the lack of Dylan Harper, the lack of De'Aaron Fox played a huge part in how that game went down the stretch, because it was literally anybody's game pretty much for the most part of game 2. And, I look at it like, the way I look at this series now, they can get even one of those guys back to kind of, manage the flow of the offense and limit the amount of turnovers, because that is if I'm Mitch Johnson, that is the one thing I'm putting on the whiteboard in practice. Limit turnovers. Limit turnovers. That is the only thing I want. Because when it comes to Shea, I don't need you to necessarily stop him. Just make it difficult. Every shot has to be difficult for him. Do not worry about, can we stop him, because I don't think there's a particular one player that can stop him. I think it's more so just make it difficult and make every shot something that he's going to have to make over a contested 6'5", 6'6" defender. That's all he has to do. All they have to do.
There's no such thing as stopping great players. What you do is you slow them down and you neutralize them to a degree. That's been the story of what we've seen a lot through LeBron's career. All these, you have these folks come out and say, Kawhi stopped LeBron in the 2014 finals and Iguodala stopped him in the 2015 finals. So, okay, I watched those finals myself. I watched what LeBron was out there doing. I watched the numbers he put up. They didn't slow him down. They neutralized him to a degree. They made it more difficult for him to have the numbers that he did have. And like OKC and San Antonio, the Spurs made it difficult for Shea to get to the 23 points that he did get in game one. Maybe it was 24 points. Either way, he did not shoot the ball well in that game. He played better in game two, but he's not ready to deal with tough physical guard play just yet because he's not exactly the strongest guy out there. You put Stephon Castle on him, you create problems. But yes, you need one of those 2 point guards out there too, whether it's Fox, whether it's Harper, who can neutralize that to a degree. But what I want to know is, and this is something that I really watched in game two. There was a play in particular in the third quarter where AJ Mitchell had the ball on the left wing, Wemby's down in the paint, and he immediately started dribbling that ball back out further on the perimeter. Every time Wemby has been out there on the floor in the paint, they do not go in the paint. Now, when Luke Kornet comes in the game, they go right back down in the paint. But when Wemby's out there, they do not go in the paint.
Yeah, because there's no shot that's going to be a comfortable shot. Like even when Hartenstein has done his little push shot, his little floater game, he has to elevate that ball so much just to get it over the outreach of Wemby. So it's kind of like there's no shot that's going to be a comfortable, normal shot for any OKC player while he's on the floor. If you're talking about driving into the paint, the best thing that you could do is hope that he gets dragged out to the perimeter at some point. Like, and that's what happens when you do have a guy like Jalen Williams in the game, Chet Holmgren in the game, because they are going to have to force him to bring him out of the perimeter. But also what you see with that is that they don't necessarily have to put a guy like, they don't have to put Wemby on those perimeter players, because if he is your defensive anchor, you keep him as close to that rim as you possibly can and put some other guys out there to stifle those guys while they're on the perimeter. Then if they bring that ball past that initial defender, you got a 7'4" anchor back there that is going to make every shot difficult. Because I look at it right now, OKC, they're going to have to, a lot of their points, they're going to hope that they have to get those in transition, because in the half court, Wemby is a very difficult presence to get the ball over because of the fact that they're going to make sure that their game plan is to try to draw him away from the basket, but he doesn't have to do that if you have, defenders, because like I said, with Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, Champagne, like you have guys that you can just keep those guys on the perimeter, and then you're not worried about if he gets into that paint, because if he gets into that paint, we know who's backing that up. Now with Luke Kornet, you don't have that fear factor. You don't have that same amount of fear. Like we seen guys drive in with no fear at all, because if worst case scenario, they go into the free throw line. With worst case scenario with Wemby, he blocks a shot and they're in transition running the other way. And he's also running the floor as well. So that's the thing with Wemby. Like I said, like he is the greatest X factor that we have in the game today, because literally when he's on the court, they can't play that same style of basketball anymore. They have to, it changes what they do completely. Wemby is, like I said, he is right now the only thing, like if he gets a 3-point shot, like to the point of even a cat, like you're talking about a guy who can rattle off. Like I think he's already going to be a multiple-time MVP winner. You're talking about a guy that can. It would literally be no contest, because at that point you're talking about a guy who can score 30+ points a game, pull down 12+ rebounds a game, and also block 4 to 5 shots per game. He's going to be a guy that could like have a season similar to an MJ, similar to almost like LeBron James in 2013, similar to a Hakeem Olajuwon, where you win an MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP. It's going to be that type of guy.
I think as long as he stays healthy, Wemby's going to be the first player in league history to have multiple seasons of winning a Defensive Player of the Year and League MVP award.
Absolutely.
I do think that he'll win more Defensive Player of the Year awards than he'll win MVP, though.
Yeah, I think so too, because like I said, it's going to be one of those things. We've seen great offensive players and defensive players not get MVP. Like We've seen it multiple times. Like even LeBron James, they capped him out at 4. He won back-to-back MVPs in Cleveland, back-to-back MVPs in Miami. Hasn't won an MVP since. We've seen great offensive players do it. Now, Jokic, he had a streak where he was going on multiple MVP runs, and now it's kind of like, I don't know if, it's in jeopardy now. Jokic may not win another MVP if Wemby stays healthy.
No, if Wemby stays healthy, it's done.
Yeah, and it's just what it is. But as far as the defensive player of the year, I don't think that you can really, unless somebody like, it's going to be hard for a guard to win defensive player of the year, like how like a Marcus Smart won it, because of the fact that nobody's going to affect the game the way that he affects the game in the paint. It's going to be very hard for somebody like a guard to win another defensive player of the year like a Marcus Smart did.
And you know what's so funny about you saying that? He has the guard on his team who would more than likely be able to do it in Stephon Castle.
Yeah, and then Stephon Castle is going to run into the problem where they're not going to give it to me. They're going to give it to the guy who's the anchor, which is the reason why I'm allowed to play defense like this on the perimeter, because of the fact you can be a little bit overly aggressive on the perimeter when you got a Wemby behind you. You can do that. But when you don't have that defensive anchor, behind you, you can't play as aggressive defense as you possibly can. Now, Stephon Castle could be one of those he looks like one of those future all NBA defenders. He looked like he's going to make multiple all NBA defensive teams. Whether that be first team or second team, you just take your pick depending on the year. He looks like that type of guy right now.
Yeah, but it's no knock to him in any way whatsoever. No, Scottie Pippen is credited as one of the greatest defensive players in NBA history. He doesn't have a Defensive Player of the Year award to his name.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show that, not only is it about circumstance, when you got certain guys on your team that take up majority of the national attention, because like I said, even as great as Stephon Castle is defensively, we know who's going to get the majority of that credit when it comes to who is the real difference maker on defense on that team. It's going to be Wemby, but it shows in the way that they play also, because the block shot numbers, you can't ignore that. And, even he's going to, I look at it like this. Rudy has 4 defensive player of the years. He's going to surpass that. Even in his worst statistical year as far as blocking shots, he's still going to be a top 2 to 3 candidate every single year if healthy. That is where his ceiling is. He's going to be in that conversation. The only thing that could stop him is him not playing the minimum number of games to qualify for that award. Because every year, I don't see how you don't look at him as being the defensive player of the year, because he's shown there is not a shot out of reach for him as far as blocking shots. And then he also, he has good hands as well to be able to steal the ball as well. So it's just like he's locked in on a whole different level. Like, I don't know if we've seen a defender like this come through the NBA.
So let me throw this at you. I'm glad you said that. Out of the defensive player of the years that we've watched in our lifetime, and I'm going big men here. I'm not going to guards, because as great as the guard play is defensively, there's no guard that can handle that 7'5" unicorn. I don't want to call him an alien, but he definitely is something different. I give the best shot of being able to slow him down to prime Dwight Howard and prime Ben Wallace. And that's it.
Yeah, prime Dwight Howard was head and shoulders the best center in the league. I believe Dwight has 3 defensive player of the years. So yes, that just shows you that, and Dwight possibly could even had more, to be honest with you, but that just shows that how the league was back then. And as far as big men, when you say Ben Wallace, are you talking about being the ability to stop Wemby from, doing whatever he wants?
Yes. But I don't want to use the word stop, because like I said before,
yeah, you're right.
There's no such thing as stopping great players.
The only thing,
slow them down. Like he did Shaq in 04.
Yeah. The only thing that would stop him as far as that goes would be the length difference that he has on Ben Wallace. Now, Dwight, a little bit longer, a little bit more versatile. Ben Wallace was able to come out to the perimeter as well, but he was a defensive force, one of the greatest defensive centers we've ever seen. Now, those are two names that would be a good thing. Like as far as like, I would love to see that dream matchup.
Despite their versatility, though, you know why I also said those two names in particular? They got
Why
the
is that?
strength. They got the strength. They got the muscle to be
Yeah.
able to actually do something with him.
Oh yeah, people forget Ben Wallace was a monster. He made it difficult for Shaq. So that lets you know it is levels to this defensive thing we're talking about. Dwight Howard made it difficult for everybody in his prime. So, and he also made it to where like there wasn't just people just coming into the paint, just driving. Like there would be fast breaks where guys would have to pull the ball back out to the perimeter because he would be there. So yes, that is what we're saying. We're not, like you said, there's not a such a thing as stopping great players. It's just making life difficult for them. Like making those shots, getting to those spots a little bit more difficult because, like I said, when you got a guy like that, there is no shot out of reach. I mean, there is no shot out of reach for them. They can get to any shot that they want to. Even when you see those guys taking threes, if you see them jumping at guys, that affects their shots too. Like
Yes.
having to shoot that ball over a guy that tall. I mean, we saw Steph do it in the Olympics, and you see how difficult that ball had to get over at Wemby, how it got to the rim. So,
You might
and
get lucky and get a few of them to go in, but more than likely than not, if you have to keep shooting shots like that, you're going to miss more of them than you're going to make.
exactly. And that's the thing that separates Wemby from a lot of defenders, not just in the present, but also in the past as well. He makes every shot difficult, and there's no such thing as like picking on him in switches or anything like that because there's no shot that he can't get to.
The other thing about Wemby too, because we've said this about LeBron over the years, there's not too many guys on the planet who's 6'9", weighs that much, and can do the things that he does. I don't know if there's any other 7'4", 7'5" guys running around the planet who can come close to doing what Wemby does.
Listen, I know Shaq wanted to say that Bobo ain't this. He ain't this at all. Not it ain't just about him being lazy or what. It ain't Bobo ain't this. This is a completely anomaly of what we've seen of out of the NBA. We've never seen anybody like this. And like I said, most guys they don't have the fluidness when guys that tall usually they very lanky, tall. They usually have foot problems. They don't usually move like this. He moves like he's got full control. And then you seen him bulk up this year. That was another thing that was a big thing because now he can stand the wear and tear of the constant grind of having to guard other teams, big men, and all of this stuff. The paint is probably one of the most like grueling places you could be because his elbows getting thrown. It's people going up for rebounds, boxing out. Like, so it's a lot that's going on. So him bulking up this year played a difference into what he is as well.
Well, Chet Holmgren's going to have to bulk up in the offseason because so far what we've seen in these first two games is that he don't want the smoke of having the assignment of having to guard Wemby. Isaiah Hartenstein did a good job in game two. I don't want to take away from what he did, but how long are they going to allow him to continue to play like that? Because he got away with a lot of grabbing, pulling, and this is the guy that we assume, meaning Wembanyama, who we assume is going to be the next face of the league. Adam Silver's not going to let that continue. And if that's how they come out playing tonight, I expect there to be more fouls called.
X, it's bad when a guy has a highlight reel for fouls. He had a full highlight reel for holding, grabbing. You even saw him grab Stephon Castle's dreads. Like, it was to a point where if that's the way you were going to allow him to play, yeah, he could slow Wemby down if that's how you're going to allow him to guard him because it's to the point where you're trying to neutralize that guy in any way you can. But even Isaiah Hartenstein has no answer. There is no answer for Wemby. So you have to resort to stuff like that because – but now it's just like if I'm the Spurs, I'm in contact with the league because at this point now y'all are telling me if y'all are going to allow OKC to play like this, and we know OKC to have a different kind of whistle this year. They've had a different whistle this year when it comes to not only Shea, but the way that they are allowed to play physical against others, and others are not allowed to play physical against them. But the whole thing, it was a spotlight because if it made national attention the way that they were fouling him, grabbing them, holding them, pushing them. Like, you gotta be like, because it's not like we're saying, oh, it's just because of Wemby. No, if this was any other player, you would call that foul. Call the fouls the way that they are, because those were fouls. And if you're going to allow the game to be dictated like that, I would have been having a conversation with the refs for game 3 are going to be under more of a spotlight than anybody else, because of the fact that that game, as far as how it was officiated, when it came to him specifically, was atrocious. The way they were allowed to push him around, hold him down, do little stuff just to kind of neutralize him. You can't allow that to go forward
But
for
I
a
don't
whole
expect
series.
that in game 3 since it's in San Antonio.
I would expect that there was a conversation had with the game 3 referees prior to tonight. Let them know you have to pay more attention to these things, because it is, like I said, once it's been brought to the attention and they were showing it on the national broadcast like they did, everybody saw it. Everybody saw it. Everybody knows and is aware, because Hartenstein honestly should have fouled out of that game. If we're gonna be completely honest, the way he was doing the antics that he was pulling, he should have fouled out of that game. And so, to be honest with you, I want to see what's going to happen as far as how Wemby's going to respond to any of the grabbing, holding, if he's going to exaggerate the contact. Because at this point, had he exaggerated that contact in game 2, nobody would have should have been mad about it, because of the fact that he was getting held every play. He was getting grabbed every play, and they didn't call anything. So I want to see exactly how he's going to adjust to the way that they're going to play him tonight, because this is a pivotal game 3, because like I said, OKC could either take back home court, or, San Antonio could put their foot down and take back home court and take the advantage in the series. So I want to see how they're going to officiate tonight's game.
Well, we actually got a piece of developing news regarding game 3 happening tonight. Shams Charania is sending out a tweet, and also through the ESPN app, that Dylan Harper will be a game time decision, because an MRI showed that it actually was an adductor injury and not a hamstring injury that he suffered in game 2. That's somewhat promising news. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think it was a hamstring injury, because if you looked at how he came back out of the locker room, everything looked fine. And then they stopped him as he was going back to the bench and told him, no, you've got to go back again. So I want to say that that's somewhat promising. We'll see if he ends up taking the floor.
And I think when they told him to go, like let's not risk it, because like I said, we've seen guys try to play through injuries and then they have, a lingering injury going, like, because you let them win the battle for game 2. Let them win the battle, because I felt like that we are playing the long game. We want to be able to protect your long-term injury. We don't want it to be something that's going to linger from game 2 into possibly the rest of this series. So I agree with the decision to keep him out, because like I said, this series is going to be a battle. No matter who comes out of it, they're not going to be 100% going into the finals. I know that for a fact, just because of how this series is being played. It's physical from every single game. You see guys hitting the floor. You see guys getting tossed around everywhere. So I agree with the decision to keep him out of the remainder of game 2, because now you are worried about, all right, we see exactly how important a point guard is to the San Antonio Spurs. I need him available game 3 if possible, because I'm pretty sure it's going to come down to how he feels after warm-ups, during warm-ups, and if he feels like he's good to go. Now, he may play on a limited, he might play on a time restriction. They may put him on a minutes restriction and say, like, hey, we just want to see how you feel in 20 minutes. But we want to see how you're going to go. He may not even start tonight's game, to be honest, even if he is good to go, because they may want to, limit the number of minutes he is and keep him in spot, bring him in certain spots. But we know exactly how important it is to have a point guard for this team, because everything goes with a point guard who can set up the offense and control things. Now, I don't know exactly with the abductor injury if it's something that can be aggravated even more if he decides to play. It's all kind of, I guess, depends on him and how aggressive this injury is. But we'll see. If I would just hope that he is able to go tonight, because it's a pivotal game 3.
Yeah, I don't know how serious the adductor injury is too, but I'm just going to take a guess that it's not as serious as any type of hamstring injury. Because if this was a hamstring issue, even if it was a mild one, I feel like there would be no chance of him playing tonight. And you talked about guys not taking the chance of re-aggravating injuries and not wanting to take the risk. I mean, they're literally seeing it happen over there with the team that they're playing against with Jalen Williams, J-Dub right now. I mean, we've known, if we're being honest, KB, we have known since the first round of these playoffs when he went down against Phoenix with a hamstring issue that's been the lingering problem throughout the entire season for him. We knew, okay, he's not going to be right. And if you really want to play the long game with him, maybe we shouldn't play him again for the rest of the season. But we're not going to do that because we're trying to win a championship. And he and his representation probably also wouldn't go for something like that either. It probably could cause issues down the line. But I mean, we see now this is going to continue to be a problem, at least for the rest of this season. So, yeah, absolutely. I agree with holding him out for the rest of game 2, meaning Dylan Harper.
Yeah.
Also, before you continue, I have to say this too. There was a crowd of people who sat up here and got on Luka Doncic because he did not want to chance coming out and playing in the playoffs for the Lakers with a hamstring injury. Look at what could have happened if he had done that, if not worse.
And to find out after that series that hamstring was a grade 3 hamstring strain. I'm sorry. So it wasn't like it was just something that he could have just played through. And anybody who's ever pulled a hamstring, strained a hamstring, it's one of the most painful things, especially you're talking about running. You're talking about being a top athlete and running up and down the court. That thing, it hurts so bad. Like when I tell you, there's literally like nothing you can do. There's no running it off. There's no running it. Like there's nothing that's going to make it better other than rest. There's literally nothing that you can do for that type of injury.
It's somewhat like having a consistent Charlie horse that you can't do anything to get rid of.
I pulled mine once before, and I tell you, I was useless at that point. I couldn't do anything with it. It was basically felt like you said, like a bad muscle strain that was just there, and there was no icing it. There was no it was literally you can only rest that injury. So yeah, Luka, after it was revealed that he had a game, I knew it was something more than what people were making it out to be, because everybody wants to say like, oh, you should be out there for your team. It's the playoffs. Yeah, but certain things you just can't go. You can't go with. Like you cannot go out there because, like I said, it's more so it can go from a strain to a tear, and things once it's damaged to the point of with like recovery time is going to be longer than you anticipated. Now you possibly derailed any type of progress your career could have been making. And we've seen guys like when KD popped his Achilles trying to get back just to help his team, the pressure of the outside world, outside of the NBA circle, the pressure came from fans, journalists, everybody who had an opinion on it.
You said Ric Flair.
Yeah. So all of the outside noise played a part into it, and when it actually happened, the injury happened when he did tear his Achilles. Crickets.
Oh, not Ric Flair on the Achilles injury. Ric Flair with the Luka stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I did see on social media where Ric Flair was being critical of it, and I know guys were saying if LeBron James is good to go, then why can't Luka Doncic be good to go?
LeBron James isn't the one who pulled his hamstring.
And that's why I said comparing apples to oranges. You can't compare. You say, well, he's out there. No, because we already saw Luka had a different type of. He had an injury that LeBron hasn't necessarily. Like, even if LeBron's had a hamstring strain, LeBron he's an anomaly in itself too, because you can see how he take care of his body. You can't compare two things that have no type of correlation to each other, because he didn't really have no correlation. People were saying that he should have been out there playing. Who is it for you to say? Because we can have the same injury right now. How we recover from them injuries is going to be completely different. Your body is different. My body is different. The way we recover from those injuries are going to be completely different. So people compare, I strained my hamstring. You're not one of those top athletes in the world either. So you can't make that. You can't make that assessment.
And even outside of that, say that you have to go through something like PT, like physical therapy, as a part of your process too. That's going to be different for people too.
Yeah, and how your body responds to that therapy also is going to be completely different from others. So you're telling me a guy that has offensive workload, unlike a lot of people in the NBA, You're telling him you should be able to go. So if I'm Luka Doncic, I'm offended if anybody has something to say to me about an injury that I'm dealing with. Basically, telling like because and I commend him a little bit because he didn't let the pressure of everyone else convince him to go out there and play in something that he knew was going to be detrimental to him health wise. Because
No,
we talk about protecting the player from the player all the time. That is one of those things where you got to be smart because even with Luka Doncic, I don't think they were winning that series regardless. So the fact that you're telling me that he's going to go out there and risk it all, possibly go into the offseason even more banged up than he already is, which could affect his start of the regular season, even going into camp in a couple of months. Like it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So yeah, I didn't even understand all of the talk, but like we've seen with JW, these injuries can be re-aggravated. If they're not 100% ready to go, they can be re-aggravated. And then when they re-aggravate the injury, it can even be worse than the initial injury. So you don't want to risk those things sometimes. But I get Jalen Williams wanting to play. I get him wanting to be out there for his team. This because, like I said, you don't have that luxury. He didn't. He felt like, especially going into game one, he didn't have that luxury of just sitting out because he knew exactly how important he was to this team, and he also knew that Spurs team, this ain't the type of team I can just rest against and we just gonna coast through to the finals. No, 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 no. Everybody on that OKC side, everybody who supports OKC, they knew that they were gonna be in for one when they came into the series. We already knew that because of
that,
that 7-4 demon on the other side.
and something we always credit OKC for, Sam Presti, with the job that he's done. We talk about the depth that they have on their team. Well, having depth is a great thing until it's that next man up mentality, and that next man cannot do what the man in front of him was able to do. I'm just saying.
Yeah, especially when you're replacing a guy who's a 20-point per game scorer who can also grab 6 to 7 rebounds, play lockdown defense. You know what I'm saying? You can't just throw another guy in there and say, go do that. Go do that. No, it's not that simple. Literally,
Jason
he's
Wallace
still
is not doing that. Isaiah
no.
Joe is not doing that.
And I
Jalen
love
Williams from Arkansas is not doing that.
and I love the way that Casey Wallace plays defense. I love the way Isaiah Joe plays defense. Different type of players though. They're not asked to do what Jalen Williams is asked to do. Not even close. You know what I'm saying? So it is a different type of animal when you're asking a guy to come off the bench and get thrust into a spot where they're not used to, they're not comfortable because you can't go ask Isaiah Joe to go be your second leader, your second guy. You can't ask that because now you're telling the guy who's been a role player, who's been one of the rotation guys pretty much all his career to now be thrust into a spot where he may just be taking certain shots where he was used to just taking certain, spot up threes or, getting his points off of the attention of, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You're asking him to be in the spot where he's not that comfortable. We seen certain guys rise to the occasion, like Alex Caruso. He's risen to the occasion in the playoffs. In this series specifically, he's risen to a number 2 option, even though he wasn't asked to be the number 2 option.
Yeah, but I want to ask you something about Alex Caruso because I saw something absolutely ridiculous on TV yesterday of somebody, I'm not going to name any names,
Know what you about to say?
somebody naming Alex Caruso saying that he is a top 5 all-time role player. I don't agree with that. Where do you stand on that?
I definitely don't agree with that. And I think recency bias is a thing. I think that it is now. Is he an amazing role player? Yes. For what he does for any team that he's been on, he's shown that you can put him in, and he's going to make it happen no matter where he's at, no matter what team he's playing for. But you say top 5, now I got to stop you right there because now we're getting into a little bit of you're looking at what he's done recently, and I get that. But let's slow it down a little bit. Let's not go too crazy with it.
I don't put Alex Caruso in the same conversations that I do when I think about guys like Dennis Rodman, Draymond Green, Manu Ginobili, Robert Horry. I don't view him that way yet.
Not even close. And when you talking about those guys, all those guys are multiple time champions. They've, been in deep playoff situations. Now, like granted, Caruso has 2 rings. He's a champion, what I'm saying he came in as a hustle player. He came in as a guy that can, you know what I'm saying, affect the game in a bunch of different ways, not only defensively, but offensively as well. And granted, he's taking advantage of the opportunity that he's been given in this series with the way that they've been covering Shea. And, he's played well, but top five, that's a stretch. That's something that's reserved for like, legends of the game. And he hasn't proven that quite yet. Could he be there? Possibly, but like I think it's a thing about, X to me, that's like clickbait. That's like clickbait. That's like a hot take. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's searching for that hot take out there. I think that's just one of those things that guys just said, hey, what will make big news if I go out there and say this. We gotta stop with that. Like it's cool if you want to give a guy his flowers, give him his flowers, but we ain't gotta go that far. Not right now. Like let his career play out some more. Then we can have a conversation once his career starts dwindling down. But saying that he's top five over guys that have been proven to get it done year in and year out, no, I can't go that far.
And when you think about guys like Robert Horry, Sam Cassell, Dennis Rodman, these guys did this in more than two places. We've only seen Alex Caruso be effective when he was with the Lakers and with OKC. When he had that stint with Chicago, he wasn't exactly effective. I believe he had a stint with Washington. More of the attention was focused on Russell Westbrook at that point. I didn't really remember hearing Alex Caruso's name too much in that year that he was with Washington. When you think about Robert Horry, you think about Rockets, Lakers, Spurs, Sam Cassell, Rockets, Timberwolves, Clippers, even that 1 year he had with the Celtics. Manu spent his entire career with San Antonio, so I'm going to leave him out of the conversation. Draymond, same thing with Golden State, but you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you put him, as far as role players, do you put him above guys like even a Derek Fisher?
I'm going to say no, because I've seen the totality of Derek Fisher's career. And I saw how people talk about, or they don't talk enough about how none of Kobe Bryant's championships were won without Derek Fisher being his teammate.
Yep. And the reason I bring that up is because, like I said, what you just said is true. You've seen the totality of his career. You've seen him playing Utah. You've seen him playing LA. You've seen him hit big shots and big moments that led to, that contributed to championships. Caruso has won championships, but it's not like he was asked to do something. Like in LA, he was a gritty guy. He was a guy that was going to pick you up probably full court. He was going to guard you. Same thing in OKC. He's a guy that can pick you up full court and he can guard, multiple ways. But it's just the fact that I haven't seen it over a totality of a career. That's the thing I'm trying to say. Like I haven't seen it for the duration of his career. He's done it. Yeah, he's done it in two places. He's done it, but it's just the fact that those guys were asked to do different things. Derek Fisher was leading those Shaq and Kobe Lakers as the lead guard. He was the lead point guard on those Shaq and Kobe teams. When he went away, came back, got right back to back-to-back championships. When he left LA and then came back and they won back-to-back championships. They lost one, they won two straight. So I'm looking at like Derek Fisher's contributed, like you said, to winning, and he's done it multiple times. Kobe Bryant has not won a ring without him being on his roster. If you look at it, that's probably one of his top, favorite players that he's ever played with. And so, even when Shaq credits guys like Robert Horry, he said, we don't win those championships without Big Shot Bob. We don't do that. You know what I'm saying? That's why I say like Robert Horry has shown, like I said, whether it was Houston, whether it was LA, he's shown that he can win.
No, all three of those teams I named, he helped win championships.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, because didn't he have a stint in San Antonio as well?
Yep, after he left the Lakers.
Yeah, so it's just like he's made shots. Dennis Rodman, you literally you can't just dwindle down what he did with stats. Like the way he affected that game, he did all the stuff that other guys didn't want to do.
Without Dennis Rodman, the Detroit Pistons don't have either one of those two championships they won in 89 or 90. He changed the culture in San Antonio for a small stint of time when he got there. Without Dennis Rodman being in San Antonio, I don't know if David Robinson wins the MVP award in 1995. And that's not taking anything away from David Robinson's greatness, but him having somebody like Dennis Robinson there, defensively, you had somebody else who was able to pay attention and take more of an assignment in the front court role as opposed to having to depend on the Admiral to do it. Sam Cassell, like I said, him in itself, Rick Fox is somebody else. When I look at Alex Caruso, you know who I honestly think of who he possibly is as a role player?
Ooh.
Mario Chalmers or Lamar Odom.
I don't even know if I can put him over Lamar Odom because Lamar Odom.
I'm having a problem with that too, but I only watch Lamar Odom. I only watch Lamar Odom truly be a difference maker with the Lakers.
Yeah,
I'm not old enough to remember when he was a Clipper.
Yeah, he was hooping with the Clippers, but he was asked to do different things. Like Clippers weren't a winning franchise at the time, so it was basically just go out there and just play your game. When he came to the Lakers, he had to play structured basketball with the triangle offense, so it was a little bit different. So I don't know if I can go that far as put him over LO, I'm sorry, but yeah, I think that he has ways to go before he can get into that top 5 list for me.
Honestly, and I'm not being disrespectful when I say this, I don't know if he's a top 5 guard in terms of top 5 role players who were guards, if I'm being honest. You got Sam Cassell, you got Manu Ginobili, then you got to think about guys like Derek Fisher, Ron Harper. It's tough.
Yeah, it definitely gets tough. But like I said, as far as his ascension up that list, if he helps them win another championship, of course he's going to keep climbing up that list. But like I said, we got to let his career play out a little bit more before we can start making that assessment.
Is there anybody else on that team that you would consider to be an effective role player, meaning OKC, that he is, though?
Effective, yes. I could say Cason Wallace is effective because what he does defensively, even on his offensive game, like hitting open shots, like he's effective. If you're talking about role players on that team outside, like we're not talking about Jalen Williams or talking about Chet Holmgren. I'm talking about just straight role players. It's Alex Caruso, and then it's Cason Wallace, and then even if you want to include a guy like AJ Mitchell, because he even came in and spot minute. Like he's not obviously having the series that he had against the Lakers, but he can be effective. Then you see even guys that may have not been playing that much, and like Isaiah Joe, he's being thrust in there as well. So like they have a good, collection of role players, but Cason Wallace is effective because what they ask him to do, pick up the guy, the opposing team's best guard and guard 94 feet away from the basket. Like you can't. It's only one other guy that I can really say do that, and that's Caruso. So Cason Wallace is like that other guy that can do some of the same things that Caruso do. Can like hit open shots. He can pick up the opposing team's best guard them, away from the basket. We saw how he guards like even guys like Stephon Castle bringing up the ball. Nothing's, easy. So I'm not gonna say he's to the level of Caruso, but he can also do some similar things that Caruso can do.
I asked you that question for a reason, though, and that's because we hear this, and I know we got to get into the Jason Kidd topic to close the show out. That's because people talk about OKC being this all-time great team, and I don't want to take away any of their greatness and what they're doing right now. But you notice when it comes down to Showtime Lakers, 90s Bulls with Jordan, Pippen Jackson, Shaq and Kobe Lakers, Spurs, and even the Warriors with Clay, Steph, Draymond, Clay, KD, Steph, Draymond. All of those teams have one thing in common. Miami Heatles as well. They all have multiple great role players. And you have to have, Shaq talks about it all the time. He calls them the others. You have to have guys who are really good at being the others in order to really be a great team to go along with the stars too. That's why I brought that up.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like it is when you're talking about some of the greatest championship teams all time. Even when you're talking about like even let's go as recent as like the KD Warriors. I know y'all remember Sean Livingston. Sean Livingston was instant offense from the mid range. Andre Iguodala, you know what I'm saying? Instant defensive threat, hit open shots. They don't win those championships without Andre Iguodala. So
He-
and that's just what we're saying. Like multiple
Leandro
guys,
Barbosa was a key role
Barbosa,
player for them in
exactly.
those first 2 years too.
You can even go to guys like Ian Clark. You can go to guys like go down Maurice Spates. You can go down the list of guys that they had, and if you take one or two of those guys off, they don't win those championships without them because, like I said, you got to win the non-superstar minutes. You got to win the guy when your guys need a quick blow. You need those guys to go in and be able to be inserted into the lineup and make a difference. Those guys were there. When you're talking about the Heatles, you had the Mike Millers. Even Ray Allen at that point in his career could come in and hit shots, even if he wasn't a starter, not a starter. You had Mike Miller. You had guys like Shane Battier. You had guys that came in that were effective role players. I even give you, even when you're talking about guys that didn't necessarily weren't a part of championship teams, he was a part of one. Tony Allen, great role player, can pick up and guard. He was basically one of those guys that could take your star player out of that series, whether it was Kevin Durant, whether it was trying to basically make it difficult for guys like Kobe, Melo, anybody that you had, he would pick up the top assignment on that team. And, he made it difficult. Mike Conley, a constant vet. He's been a role player in multiple times in his career. He went from being one of the stars on his team to being a role player once he was in Minnesota. So he's been a role player. So you got a plethora of guys that you can just say were role players and they were stars in their role. But that's why when I say top five, you got to pump the brakes because you got to go through a number of guys before you can enter that top five echelon type of category for when you're talking about top five of anything, let alone
Right.
role players.
Right. So I don't want to call it a stupid take. I just want to say it was stupid to have the take right now because it's definitely a not right now type of conversation. There's a lot of runway that still needs to be accomplished there. Last topic we're going to get into for the show, and this is one that caught a lot of people by surprise, but it didn't catch me necessarily by surprise, and that was the Dallas Mavericks and Jason Kidd parting ways. We're calling it that because they said that it was a mutual decision. I'm going to be honest, KB. I think Jason Kidd just got fired. That's really what I think happened here. I saw Masai Ujiri, the new president of basketball operations there with the Mavericks. I saw his opening press conference. And when he was asked the question about the future of Jason Kidd, he could not give a direct answer. And when I saw that, I said, he out, he gone. That's it.
Yeah. And anytime when you bring in a new GM, like you got to think about it. That's not his guy. He ain't got no loyalty to Jason Kidd whatsoever. And what was surprising in all of this news when it came out, I heard that Jason Kidd was actually one of the ones that was in favor of the Luka Doncic trade. I didn't know that initially. I thought that pretty much he was against it, and that was a Nico type of deal, and Nico was pretty much at the forefront of that deal altogether. But it just goes to show that while he was good at player development and building certain things up, whether it was his time in Milwaukee, whether it was his time out here in Dallas, like he's been good in places that he's gone and coached. But like I said, when it comes to new ownership doesn't have that loyalty. Like we even seen it in Atlanta when Austin came in. There is no loyalty to Trae Young. There is no loyalty. Like there's nothing that keeps a guy, that there's nothing that runs a guy's time out in the organization faster than bringing in new ownership or new front office leadership because of the
Because
fact
they
that
want to go out there and get their guys.
they want to get their guy and then build their team pretty much how they see fit. And if they felt like that, there's no connection, there's no relationship, there's no point of keeping a guy, they will find a way, whether it's justified or not, to get rid of you. And I think that Masai Ujiri, he saw that Jason Kidd wasn't his guy. He wants to, build this team in a new direction because, like I said, You have a guy like Cooper Flag now, so you have a guy that you see as the cornerstone of your franchise, and then you have multiple pieces on your roster that you feel good about. So now it's just about going in a completely different direction that you've been used to in the last couple of years. Like I said, it started with Nico, and then once Nico's gone, now it's Jason Kidd, and that just happened. I'm sorry, it started with Luka being gone first, then Nico, now Jason Kidd. So none of those guys are part of the Dallas Mavericks organization anymore. And so basically, Messiah saying it's a new era. We're starting a new, completely different era. We're starting to build a different culture out in Dallas now.
Well, one name that's already been rumored for the candidacy of this opening is Jon Scheyer. Now, look, I don't want to say that Cooper Flag could have had influence or he could have had a say in what ended up happening here too. But the fact that Jason Kidd is now out and the guy that is now being rumored to be a candidate for this is Jon Scheyer, your college coach at Duke, looks a little fishy.
I'm pretty sure they checked his temperature on that. I'm almost certain that they checked his temperature, which is a lot of star players. They get approached to by ownership and say, "How do you feel about us bringing in this guy?" And I'm pretty sure he used some of his influence in the organization to actually, suggest, maybe just make a suggestion, quick little suggestion about Jon Scheyer because of the fact that he felt so great about the way that he coached him while he was at Duke. Hey, I'm not saying that he did, but I'm not saying that he didn't. We've seen star players influence coaching decisions before. We've seen KD and Kyrie do it with Steve Nash in Brooklyn. There was nothing that Steve Nash had done to that point that warranted him getting the Brooklyn job, but he was brought into Brooklyn because of the fact that was KD and Kyrie's guy, so they brought him in. So, and it could be a similar type of situation with Cooper Flag. They said, "Hey, we're building this team around you. Who do you feel more comfortable with?" And if he's the name that he floated out there, I'm sure that he's been linked to him.
We'll have to watch and see what happens, but it's going to be interesting to see if Jason Kidd even still wants to coach. I think he doesn't want to go into a rebuilding situation, so you can cross Chicago off that list. I don't know what the hell is going on in Portland right now with the Blazers. I don't know what that owner's doing, so I don't know who's going to take that job.
I would have liked to see Tiago Splitter retain that because of what he did. He turned around that team in unprecedented circumstances. So I would like to see him still be the head coach of that team because I thought he did a great job getting them to a playoff berth. It didn't go the way that I thought they were playing with house money up there in Portland because of the fact that season ended up the way it is. You got Damian Lillard coming back from a season-ending injury, letting him recover. I think Portland is going to be okay. I think that you just got to let things play out up there. But I think Tiago Splitter's done enough to earn that job up there.
I'm with you, but the rumored name that came out on Thursday was Jeff Van Gundy. How you feel about that?
Intrigued. I'm gonna say that. To say the very least, I'm intrigued about that decision because if that is the route that you want to go, I do think Jeff Van Gundy is a great basketball mind. So I'm intrigued more so than anything on that one.
I think Orlando is a spot to also watch potentially for Jason Kidd as well. That's not exactly a rebuilding situation. They just need to get the right voice in there.
Yeah, and they got to get somebody that connects with the stars, like Franz. And Paulo's going to listen to somebody. He's going to listen to somebody like a Jason Kidd. I think that when you're talking about player development, he may be the thing that Paulo needs as far as to get his game to the next level. So hopefully, if he's going to go somewhere, like it's going to be somewhere where he can develop the star player, and especially a young star player like Paulo who needs some type of guidance right now because Paulo can be dominant if he puts his mind to it. Really, if he gets the right guys behind him, he can he can be a top 20 player, top 15 player. Right now, he's on that lower half of the top 15 to 20. Well, the top 15 to 20 players, he's on that lower half. So, but Paulo, he can be that guy. He can be one of those guys if he actually puts in the work.
I hope he takes up the offer potentially of working out with Carmelo Anthony this summer. I think that would be really good for him.
Yeah, because he needs to be like Carmelo. One thing, if anything, when he was a force in the paint. Like he's like a bull in a china shop. When Carmelo put his head down and get into the paint, nobody was stopping him because he was strong as an ox. And I think that that's something that Paulo can, benefit from, because I think Paulo's strong. He's skilled enough to get into the paint at will. He just has to be able to he just has to take this game serious. If he wants to continue to develop and to be that all NBA type of player that we feel like he could be because of skill set, then hey, I think you take Carmelo up on his offer. You getting toolage from one of the greats. You learn from him and learn as much as you can in a short time period and get ready for next season where people are going to expect more out of you.
Well, we'll continue to keep our eyes on all of these different situations. It'll be curious to see who Dallas does end up choosing, who Portland ends up going with, and who else fills in these vacancies, and if Jason Kidd is going to be a head coach in the league next year. It's definitely a situation where he honestly could be sitting down for a year, which is not a bad thing, KB, when you consider the fact that they still have to pay him $40 million anyway, since they fired him early in his deal.
Yes, sir. Agree. It might not be a bad thing to take a year off and then possibly wait for other coaching destinations to open up. It may be one of those things where he plays the long game and just takes a year off.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. We'll be back with another one next week. As always, we thank you all for listening in, watching, however it is you're tuned in. For KB, I'm X. We're saying peace.
Peace.